PowerPoint. The meeting's in the boardroom, unlike last time, and hopefully now, if there were board members here like Kelly, everybody would be able to still participate at the same time without the feedback or other issues that we had last session when we were trying this out. So please provide us any feedback that you get regarding any technology problems or issues working with the equipment or things that aren't quite as you expect. And we'll incorporate that into the next meeting. For the agenda, we've just got two items, a legislative update and an administrative update. On the legislative update, I'll start by talking about the one, well, there are two, but board recommended bills. The Healthcare Authority Technical Corrections Bill that the board decided to support has been introduced in the Senate. I'm not sure yet whether they are going to introduce a House companion or not. The problem in the past has been with the getting the bill passed by the Senate, and so I think they've decided that they're just going to try to just use the Senate only. Tammy, that's not, can you change the slide? Thank you. So the other bill is the remarriage prohibition bill, dealing with the L&I benefits. That bill has been introduced in both the House and the Senate. The numbers were sent to you, but it's 5246 in the Senate, 1194 in the House. The Senate sponsor was Senator Roach, and the House sponsor was Representative Kirby, who has sponsored the bill in the past. There was a hearing yesterday in the House Commerce and Labor Committee on the House bill. I testified at the hearing in support of the bill. There was also testimony from 7 or 8 of the surviving spouses in support of the bill. There was testimony regarding concerns with the bill from the Association of Self-Insurers, from the Association of Cities, and from the Association of Counties. And I met briefly after the hearing with the representatives from cities and counties to talk about the bill and clarify where they were at. Now, hopefully, I'll get a chance to follow up with them more as session goes on. If the bill goes all the way through the process, or both bills go all the way through the process, there might be a total of 4 hearings on this. Unfortunately, the fiscal note was not available for the cities and county folks when they testified yesterday. So I talked a little bit about that. The way the fiscal cost works for David, for the cities and counties in particular, if you are part of the L&I fund, there would be an increase in liabilities that would be drawn against their reserve fund. And whether that, for the state fund, whether that would be enough to affect rates was unclear. There may need to be an adjustment for the cost of police and fire claims in the future. On the self-insured side, there's a number of cities and counties that are self-insured. The way it works there is similar, except it's on an individual basis for an individual employer. So for instance, and I'm just using these as hypothetical examples, I don't know where the specific jurisdictions are, but there are apparently 4 widows whose husbands were employed by self-insured jurisdictions. And so if they were allowed to, that have remarried, 4 widows who have remarried, if their benefits were restarted, that would be an increase in liabilities against that specific employer, and it would be charged against their reserve funds. And then whether that would be enough to require them to add additional revenue to increase their reserve funds, or whether their reserve funds are already sufficient, that'd be a case-by-case basis. But mechanically, that's how the cost would work. The state cost for it is minimal, I think in the for the non-liability claim piece of it. I think it's $17,000 for L&I to make their changes. The cities and counties testified about the cost and asked the legislature to be conscious of the overall cost environment for local government employers. The self-insurers testified with concerns that this would create a privileged class of L&I claimants that would have this benefit that other classes would not. The chair of the committee indicated that he thought the bill would be scheduled for executive action fairly rapidly, possibly this week. So I would expect to have news for you on that one way or another here in the next couple of days. I'm not sure, but I think their next hearing is Thursday, so it might pass out of committee as quickly as Thursday. But I'll keep all of you updated on that. There were two other bills. Well, I neglected to mention earlier, the Healthcare Authority bill has been introduced in the Senate, hasn't been scheduled for a hearing yet. There are two other bills that have been introduced that affect LEOFF members that I wanted to bring to your attention. One has to do with the state's deferred comp program. As you'll recall, the board had discussions in the past about requiring all LEOFF employers to offer the state's deferred comp program as an alternative, or at least as an option to their members. I spoke with the Select Committee about that bill last session, and the Select Committee had some discussions about it this session. Senator Bailey has sponsored a bill this session which would require all public employers, not just LEOFF employers, but all public employers to offer the state's deferred comp bill as an option. And her bill also includes a couple of provisions that would automatically enroll new state employees in the state's deferred comp program. So if they don't want to participate, they have to opt out. And also sets a default participation contribution rate. So that bill is in the Senate Ways and Means Committee, and I'll keep you apprised when it's scheduled for a hearing. I understand there's a House companion that will be introduced shortly. Will likely have slightly different provisions. It will apply again to all public employers and public employees in the state, so it won't be just a LEOFF-only bill. And it may have different auto-enrollment and mandatory minimum contribution provisions in it. I think that's all still being worked out. But I'd expect to see that bill introduced here shortly. The other bill that I wanted to talk about... Yes.
What are the bill numbers?
The Senate bill on the mandatory DCP is 5435.
And the House bill doesn't have a number yet?
No, hasn't been introduced yet, but I will...
Steve, is there a administrative cost to those?
A modest administrative cost. All public employers can already report DCP to DRS, and DRS is already set up to handle it. I don't recall off the top of my head what the administrative costs were, but I can get that out to you or have it in the next ledge update, Jack.
Okay, great.
On the second bill I wanted to bring to your attention is 5214. It's a Senate bill only. Senator Roach is the sponsor. This bill affects public safety employees, corrections officers, for instance. What it provides, so it doesn't impact LEOFF. For the state retirement systems, remember the public safety employee retirement systems is essentially corrections officers and some of the limited jurisdiction law enforcement officers. So it doesn't affect LEOFF. But what that bill provides is that for those employees, they could collectively bargain to have their pension contributions paid for by the employer. That is currently not allowed for any of the state retirement systems, so this would be the first bill where that cost-sharing policy would change if it were to pass. The cost-sharing policy, we haven't talked about it at the board, but depending on how this bill goes or whether it passes or not, I'll be prepared at your first board meeting of the interim to talk about that policy. It's something that around the country, the trend is actually going the other way towards more cost sharing rather than having the employer pay all the costs. There are a couple of policy reasons for that, but the pros and cons of it all I'll be prepared to talk to the entire board about at your first regular board meeting in the interim, or if any of you have specific questions about that now, I'd be happy to do the best that I can.
Okay. Thanks.
On the administrative update, there were just a couple of items. First off, the fourth quarter budget update, there is a spreadsheet that was sent out to you for the fourth quarter. Right now, the board is a little over $100,000 under budget for the biennium, so the agency budget's in great shape with the remaining 6 months of the biennium ahead of us. But I'd be happy to answer questions about any specific items if you have them, either now or at any time. And then there were two outreach activities that I wanted to bring to your attention that have already taken place. One was the WACOPS winter membership meeting. They asked me to speak about what bills the board would be proposing. So I talked with them about the remarriage prohibition. I also talked with them about the state budget and the inclusion of the board's contribution rates in the governor's proposed budget and the payment of the alternate revenue payment from the last biennium was also included in the governor's proposed budget. So that's a positive step in that direction, potentially to resolving that issue for the public safety enhancement account that has half the money going to local governments for public safety expenses and half going to a left to benefit improvement account. It's a payment in the governor's budget as the House and Senate budgets are introduced and work through the process. I'll keep you updated on that. So that's what I talked about with WACOPS. And coming up, the Washington State Council of Firefighters will be having their legislative conference. That's next month here in Olympia. They've asked me to come and speak to essentially the same things. I'll have a handout. I don't know how much will have changed between now and then, but we'll keep you posted. We had a booth one day at WACOPS, and we also will have a booth for at least one day at the State Council of Firefighters Conference as well, with staff there to answer questions that any of the members have.
Steve, have you talked to Kim about WASPIC meeting?
I don't recall. I'll follow up with Tammy about that. I know we've spoken with them in the past. Off the top of my head, Jack, I don't remember where things stand. I think they have one meeting per year where they thought it would be helpful for us to have a booth, and that we've committed to that one meeting.
Okay. And it's usually in Chelan, is where they usually have them. But I think it's important to keep our contacts with the chiefs and sheriffs, because they're left to as well, and sometimes I think they may get left out of the mix, so to speak.
Yes, and one of the things too, David, maybe you can help with this, because since right now the counties still don't have a representative on the board, cities and you are kind of carrying all the weight for a large segment of the employer representatives, and I don't know when the city's conference is. I don't know how helpful it would be for us to have a booth, but we'd be happy to do that. And to the extent that they'd like a presentation on LEOFF, again, we'd be happy to do that. That may be so small on the list of priorities that wouldn't be helpful. But even if we just had a booth to answer questions about LEOFF
Yeah, we're going to
benefits.
be there next week, actually, or 2 weeks, February 18th and 19th at the Red Lion, so right down the street from you all.
Yeah.
18th will be at the Red Lion with conferences and information, but in the 19th will be on the Capitol. So I talked with Candace Spock from AWC to see if there's some way that you could provide support for that. But I think you're right that they pretty much have done all their panels and things like that. So we can talk about that afterwards here.
Okay. Not all the board bills are going to be unanimously supported by all the stakeholder organizations that are represented on the board, and I don't want the organizations who are not supporting board bills, for instance, in this case, the cities and counties, to feel like they're any less of stakeholders, or that their expectations for me or my expectations about working with them are any different. And so that was something I know Candace talked with me about yesterday. She's sensitive about that issue now on the remarriage bill in particular.
Right.
So whatever I can do to address any potential concerns along that line, David, I'm happy to do.
Okay, thanks.
That concludes all of the prepared presentations for this meeting. I'd be happy to answer questions about anything that we've talked about today, or anything else that you have questions about, if there's other bills or other LEOFF-related issues that you want to discuss.
Hey, Steve, when you started out on, on the bills, there was a lot of rattling in the background. The very first bill you were talking about, just with the Senate, I couldn't hear what it was.
The first bill I talked about was a bill in the Senate. It's 5435, Jack. And this is a bill by Senator Bailey that would require all public employers in the state to offer the state's deferred comp program as an option to all their employees.
No, the very first one, now you talked about that as the third one down, but you talked about something, just a Senate bill. Is that the same thing? I couldn't make out what you're saying.
Was it the Healthcare Authority bill that was introduced by endorsed by the board? Yeah.
That's what it was. You're right.
Okay. That bill, I apologize, I don't have that number handy. That bill has been introduced in the Senate, hasn't been introduced in the House, and hasn't been scheduled for a hearing yet.
And what's it about?
That's the Healthcare Authority technical correction bill that they came to speak to the board about, I think at the November meeting, and the board voted to support the bill.
Okay.
It's just technical corrections. There are a couple of technical corrections related to LEOFF regarding the definition of a domestic partner, that where there were the year that the board's domestic partner bill passed, there was also a state domestic partner bill, and they had slightly inconsistent definitions. The Healthcare Authority has been using the definition in the LEOFF 2 board bill and will continue to do that, but they want to clear up that statutory inconsistency. So that's the only piece about that bill that is specific to LEOFF 2.
Okay. And also, Senator Brown's been replaced. Is that my understanding?
Not yet. There was a letter. I had sent a copy out to all the board members. We received a letter from Senator Schessler that he sent to Governor Inslee, asking that Senator Brown be replaced on the LEOFF 2 board with the new senator from the Ellensburg area, who replaced Senator Holmquist Newbury, who ran for Congress. As soon as we hear something from the governor's office about that appointment, of course, we'll share it with you.
Okay.
Haven't heard anything yet about the vacant appointment on the employer side.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
No, that's all I have for you guys.
Well,
All right. Thank you.
I think we've done much better without Kelly Fox. Record. It's been a lot shorter and a lot easier.
That is the typical case here, you know. So I think we have to bring that up the next meeting. So.
No, I certainly will. But I always enjoy having him there. He gives me somebody to pick on besides Steve.
All right. Thanks so much.
All right.
Okay, thanks, guys.
right.
I'm going to be adjourned. And Tammy, thanks for all the help in putting this thing together and guiding Steve down the direction that it needs to go.
You bet, Jack. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.